I always ask dentists, what's your recare rate? Oh, 90%. Okay, great. We go in and we measure their marketing recare, and it'll be around 20%. And they're just blown away. They think, no, that can't be possible. What's happening is they are looking at all their data mingled together, and then that actually makes it so you don't actually know what's going on with your marketing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Raving Patients Podcast, sponsored by the Doc Sites and Cloud Dentistry. Don't forget to check them out after you hear their little commercial in the next few minutes. My name is Dr. Len Tao, and I'm really happy today, really excited to have another marketing company on here. But before we get into this part of the podcast, what I want you to do is stop, pause the episode. I want you to go onto iTunes and review the podcast. If you're a listener, review us. It's important. It gets more people to like us and follow us and subscribe, and that's what we need. We need downloads and subscribers. So please do me a favor and go ahead and do that. And the reason I'm starting to do that is because I was recently on a podcast with my guest, and we had a great time, and that's the first thing he did. So I was kind of following him, emulating success with my newest guest. So my newest guest is Gary Bird from SMC National, which is a marketing firm. And today's episode is called Want More New Patients, Embrace Data Over Feelings. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Gary Bird. Gary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited. And if you haven't done it yet, go leave a review for this podcast, please. You have to actually go and do it. I know you heard it, but now you have to follow through and do it.
And they know me as the reviews doctor, so I would really appreciate them taking them a couple minutes of their time and going on there. It's amazing. I have a book, Gary, and I have to beg people. They downloaded the book, they love it, and I have to beg them to write a review. And I'm the reviews guy. You think it would be easy for me to do that, and it's not something that's easy to ask for. I think it all fits into everything we talk about. So I was just on Gary's episode. It just released a couple weeks ago. Just so people know, we're recording in June. And this will release sometime in November, beginning of November. So it's a few months behind. But we recorded this episode. It came out great. And I wanted to obviously have Gary in mind so he can inform the listeners and the followers of my podcast what SMC National does, how he can help, and talk a little bit about the things that he helps with. So Gary, just to begin with, why don't you give a little bit of a background about who you are, what SMC does, how you help dental practices?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor to be here. And everybody listening, it's good to have you tuning in. So my name is Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National. We're a dental marketing company. We do lead generation specifically. And what makes us unique is that we really focus on data. We can actually measure lifetime value of your patient. So we can tell you how much money are you spending with us on digital, and then how many dollars is that turning into this month, next month, the following months. And really, it's about embracing data over feelings. I know what it's like to run a small agency. We used to have 10, 15 team members. We're now over 80 team members. And one of the things as you grow is you can't operate on feelings anymore. And when you're a smaller practice and you're getting started, you kind of can use your gut because you're there all the time. But as you begin to grow and you begin to add associates or add locations, you really need to lean on data. And that's what we're the experts in, and we can help you with that. And I love our approach. We try not to sell anything. We just try to educate.
And I think that's really important, is to educate, and that's what I hope to do here. And just to kind of be clear, you are very much into the dental entrepreneur, multi-location space, emerging organization is another term you hear a lot of. You're not here to really help, as we talked about beforehand, a single dental office. The guy is happy with what he does. He's going to retire in a couple of years. You want somebody who has a lot of growth potential. I think that's a very fair thing to say, correct?
Yeah, totally fair. And just a background on that. So when we started with single locations. And then what ended up happening is the single locations ended up adding more locations. So we were working with a lot of entrepreneurial dentists, and we have 500-600 now that we work with. We have some clients that have single locations, but we're really overkill if you're not planning on growing. There's a lot of better options out there and really more cost-effective options from that standpoint. But if you're looking to grow, we're definitely the right fit for you.
And I definitely want to get more information about SMC. Obviously, I say it's my show, but it's really your show. I want to help promote you guys. But I want to hit on some of the more important topics first before we get into more about your company.
Yeah.
So I think one of the key things that I wanted to hear about was what KPIs matter most in dental marketing when you're trying to grow a business. And I think that's such an important topic. For those that don't know, and I announced it actually the last time I recorded an episode, and this is November, I am hosting an event called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. First day is marketing, and the second day is understanding the business of dentistry. And it's really because people don't know when to market. They don't know if they're getting great results. They don't know if the ROI is there. They're not tracking things properly, which I don't get. So there's so many issues here. So I really want to get you on this, is what KPIs matter most in dental marketing when you're trying to grow your business?
Yeah. So when you get into this, it really depends on who you ask, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can measure. And there's a lot of important things. Like, as an example, I think every office should have a KPI around getting Google reviews. Super important. And I know you're really big on that. I've seen all your materials on that. So, but specifically when it comes to lead generation, there's a couple key components that you have to be able to measure success. And it's really important that you understand that in dentistry, there's actually an abundance of new patients and there's not enough doctors. So if you're not seeing enough new patients, it's more than likely not your marketing, it's your operations that's bottlenecking. So I'm going to walk through a couple things that will help you be as an indicator to help you figure that out. So the first thing that you want to know is, what is my cost per lead? Now, when we get into cost per lead, that marketing companies define that differently than dentists define it. So I'm going to define it like a dentist would. If I was a dentist, how would I want that described? I'll tell you quickly how marketing companies define it. So if you go to a marketing company, you say, hey, what's my cost per lead? They're going to say like $10, $5, $20. And basically what they're telling you is someone clicked a button on your website to reach out to you, but 90% of those are not actual leads. They're not actual people. So that's not a really useful number for a dentist. It's great for the marketer if they're beginning to work into your office, but it's not a useful number to actually produce anything for your office. So when I say cost per lead, what I mean by that is somebody's reaching out to your office that's a real opportunity and they actually fit the avatar that you're trying to reach. So as an example, you don't want, if you're a fee-for-service office, you probably don't want Medicaid calls. That's not a lead. If a Medicaid patient calls you, that shouldn't be worked into your cost per lead basis, because that really should be trying to be weeded out. So that's the first segment of measurement, is how much is it for a real opportunity. From there, you want to measure cost per acquisition. So if you get 10 patients to call you and you spend $1,000 to get those patients to call you, your cost per lead is $100. But then if only 5 of those patients come into the office, well, now your cost per acquisition is $200. So you want to be able to see, what does it cost me to generate an opportunity? And then what does it cost to drive this patient in? From there, you also want to look at lifetime value. Now, everybody talks about ROI, and ROI is great. The problem with ROI is it's static, and it actually doesn't tell you the full story. So what we do is we actually sync with the PMS of the office, and we can actually see over time how you're performing with that patient. And we look at if they re-cared, number one, if you're a general dentist or pedo. And if you're specialty and ortho, then we look at cost per start. It's a different formula that we use. But for GP and for pedo, we look at what is your re-care rate? And then how much treatment are they buying over different time periods? So we look at first visit, 30-day, 90-day, and then lifetime. And then so you should see that number keep climbing over time. However, what most dentists don't realize is the reason that they keep spending money on marketing and they keep getting all these patients and their offices actually aren't growing is because the re-care is actually very, very low. So when we get in there, I always ask dentists, what's your re-care rate? Oh, 90%. Okay, great. We go in and we measure their marketing re-care and it'll be around 20%. And they're just blown away. They think, no, that can't be possible. What's happening is they are looking at all their data mingled together. And then that actually makes it so you don't actually know what's going on with your marketing.
You mentioned the re-care rate for marketing, but it's also the attrition rate for the whole office, is how many patients are walking out the door without ever coming back. And I think practices almost have blinders on and they don't really pay attention. But you can see, I've seen data on colleagues of mine that literally their practice is heading downhill because they're losing more than they're gaining every single month.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy practice. So I agree with you 100%. I do have a question on something, and because you're a marketing person, I'm going to ask you, but I've wondered this and I don't know how to answer this, but a lot of marketing companies use tracking numbers, obviously, to track the leads that are coming. They either put it on their website, they put it on, multiple different sites. Honestly, if you have the same number everywhere, that you're not really tracking anything. So to me, that's not tracking. But one of the dilemmas I see is that they put a tracking number on the Google My Business page. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the scenario. John Smith refers Sally Jones to the dentist. Yep. Okay. Sally Jones goes to Google, which is a very common place to look a dentist up, gets that phone number, calls the office, and then the marketing company says, oh, we just got you another call. That's not a marketing lead. That's a patient referral, but they're using a tracking number.
Yep.
So my question to you is, how do offices get around that? Because I talk to so many offices that have a tracking number on Google, and they don't understand that when I talk to them. And on top of that, what ends up happening, if they ever leave that marketing company, that tracking number goes away, that Google My Business number changes, and that I've had patients in my office because my tracking number went bad, and they say your phone number is disconnected.
Yep.
So what is the way? I mean, this is a common thing. How do people get around this?
Great question. So we're about to nerd out in some major marketing stuff right here. So if you don't like it, this probably isn't for you, but I'm going to cover several bases. So I'm first going to start with what's called NAP, name, address, and phone number. So everything in the search engine needs to be consistent. The phone number on the website, the phone number on your Google, the phone number on Facebook, they all need to be the same phone number. When a niche marketing company comes in and says, hey, I'm going to help you with Google My Business, or I'm going to help you with Facebook, they're really looking out for their best interest, but they're not thinking of your collective. So if you want to rank well, you have to have one phone number across the board. That's number one. Okay, so from there, you want to use on the website something that's called dynamic insertion. So if you ever landed on a website before and all of a sudden it looked like the number changed in the corner really quickly, like it kind of looked weird, that's called dynamic insertion. And what that is that you get a bank of numbers. So let's say they give you about 20 numbers, and that number rotates every time a new visitor comes to your website. And what that does is it actually tells you where the last visitor came from and what they searched. And this is really important to answer your question in full. So someone gets referred, they go search ABC Dental, their friend told them about them, they type in ABC Dental, they go to my Google My Business, they look at your reviews, they go to the website, they call the phone number, and now the marketing company's taking credit for it. But how we fix that, because I don't like that, I don't want that, because you can't scale patient referrals, you can only scale marketing patients. So I want to know exactly how many marketing patients are coming in. So what we do is, first of all, we look at the keyword that they searched. So if someone searches dentist, they're probably a marketing lead. If someone searches ABC Dental, or whatever your dental practice name is, they're probably a referral from a doctor or from a patient. So that's number one. But then the next thing that we do is we build what's called a platform. The reason that so many dentists, probably almost every single person that's listening to this, struggles with your tracking and you struggle with your marketing company just to get clarity. Maybe they're doing a great job and you have enough new patients, but you just struggle with that clarity. Here's why. You have to take your marketing data, plus your phone data, plus your practice management data, plus your website data, and you got to aggregate those. If you don't aggregate those four, it's impossible to know everything that's going on with your marketing. So what we do is we'll then listen to the phone calls with AI after we see that it was searched by ABC Dental. Then we can see on the phone, when you say, who can we thank for referring you? We can actually see on the phone call, oh, they said that my mom referred me. And that's why it's important that you always ask the question, who can I thank for referring you? Not where did you find me? If you say, where did you find me? They're always going to say the last place, which is going to be Google. That's cheating too, right? And so you want to say, who can I thank for referring you? Assume that they're a referral from a patient or a doctor. And then number three, when they hit the PMS and then they fill out the paperwork and it says, where did you find us? Then we're matching that. So now we have 3 points or 4 points with the keyword of confirmation of where this person actually came from.
So that is amazing information. I teach visibility online, and NAP is always a concern of mine, that the NAP has to be the same. If not, your ranking is going to be affected because Google doesn't trust the business. That is something I teach, I talk about. That's like speaking my language. When it comes to intermingling, I love the fact that you said you look at 4 pieces of data. You said you look at the phone data, you look at the marketing data, you look at the PMS data, and you look at there was a fourth one.
The phone, website
data. So, and I think, because I know the DSO space very well, you're in the DSO space. I'm sure you're familiar with Patient Prism, which is a Mollis product, which must be the tracking you're talking about with the dynamic phone numbers. And I would blow people away because we used to use Patient Prism when I was the owner of the practice, and I would have the attendees pull up my website, okay, at the meeting, and I would say, what phone number shows up? Tell me the phone number. And every person has a different phone number, and that blew their mind. But that's an amazing way to track it. And I'm assuming that you're very familiar with that because you're in the space anyway. So that is an amazing and again, this isn't, I don't want to make this about patient prism, but that's an amazing piece of technology.
So we use Amal a lot, and Amal actually solves a separate problem than what we solve. So, and that's why we use him. So what I call Amal, and he knows this, we talk about it all the time, he's insurance for your marketing. Okay. So what I mean by that is you're going to miss calls, you're going to miss new patient opportunities, and you're going to miss a lot of them. I'm going to go over those numbers in a moment, those KPIs, but you're going to miss them. It doesn't matter how good you are. What Patient Prism does is it grabs those and instantly gets it to the right person in your office, and you can save patients. So you're paying all this money for marketing, and then it's getting washed down the drain, and Patient Prism's bailing you out and saving those new patients for you. So if you're spending any money on marketing, if you're spending over $1,000 a month for marketing, then you need to have Patient Prism there supporting that and saving those patients. Now, here's why this is such a problem, though. And these are numbers that most people don't have. And I've lined these numbers up. I work with like Corey at Callforce, Amal. I've talked to everybody that I can about phones. And these numbers are very, very accurate. And people are going to choke when they hear these. So let's say you spend $10,000 a month on marketing. Let's just use that as a round number. All right. So the average, 35% of dental offices do not answer their phone. 35% of the time. So if you spend, let's just use it in dollar numbers. So you're spending $10,000, $3,500 goes down the drain before they even get to you. That's just right off the bat. Then from there, the average person on the phone at the front desk is 50% conversion on marketing leads, not total leads. So a lot of people say, oh, I record all my calls. That's great. But patient referrals don't count because anybody could close a patient referral. You're converting 100% of your patient referrals. Your marketing leads, if you don't know that number, you're around 50%. So guess what? We just lost what? So we were at 7,500 or so, 6,500. So now we just lost half of that. So now we're at about 3,000 and some change, right? Then right now, the average time to appointment is over a week to dental offices. You say, how do you know that? Because we track it for all of our clients. Pre-COVID, it was about 2 days. Right now, it's over a week that people are pushing their patients out, but they're still marketing anyways. Guess what that does? It spikes your no-call or your no-show rate up to about 30 to 40% because people don't want to wait that long. So you just lost, before the patient hit your door, no fault of any marketing company, you just lost about somewhere in around $8,000 of your marketing, and it's totally invisible. No PMS can measure it. No dashboard out there can measure any of those things. Those are completely marketing where marketing couples with operations. And I'm like super passionate about that because I hate failing. And so we've figured out how to close all those gaps for our clients.
Well, I think that's really, really good. And I think people need to re-listen to those KPIs you gave because that's really important to be able to run your business. Because if you don't have your KPIs understood, it's like Shark Tank. And I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank.
Yeah, me too.
If you don't know your numbers, how do you know your business? You have to know your numbers. And look, some of these numbers are a little bit complicated, but when I call dental offices and I ask them what their adjusted production number is, and they go, what's that? I'm like, guys, that's like basic stuff you need to know. If you don't know your numbers, you're not going to run a successful business. And I'm truly passionate about that comment there because it takes a lot to run a dental business, and you have to know. You can't say, well, my marketing guy knows that. You have to know that. You have to know what your overhead is. You have to know how much you're spending on marketing, what you're getting from that marketing. These are all so many things that are important. So I want to segue into my another section here, which is about red flags in dental marketing. Okay. I mean, I'm a consultant. I don't do marketing. I work with companies to do the marketing. And I would say I know the good, the bad, the ugly in the industry. And there are so many companies, unfortunately, that take advantage of dental offices. I mean, they cold call, they sign up with them on the cold call. They don't do research. And it's amazing with all the Facebook groups that are out there now. You think they would be able to find the information that proves that a company is not legitimate. Yeah. But what do you think are some red flags in dental marketing? I have a couple of my own that I'll throw in there if you don't. Yep. But where do you put on red flags in dental marketing?
Yeah. So for me, if I was a dentist, these are the things that I would think about. Number one, no contract. If someone's good at what they do, I mean, you don't charge you didn't have a contract with your patients, right? They could come and go as they please. You'd send their x-rays. If there's a contract, automatically, that's a huge red flag right off the bat. And I get it that some people are like, well, you got to give it a month or two. And I understand that. But if you're trying to tie me up for 12 months, that's a problem. Number two is measuring activity over results. And this is rampant. I would say this is the vast majority of dental marketing out there, is that people are happy to tell you what your cost per lead is, meaning they clicked on your phone number, or, hey, you've probably heard this one before. We got you like 150 calls. And it's like, okay, well, how many of those are actual patients? We don't know. That's just activity. What my SERP rate is, what my bounce rate is, all these numbers, and they're all important. All those numbers are important, but they really only matter to the marketer. It'd be like me. Here's the way that I kind of equate it to. It'd be like if my tooth hurt really bad and I came to you, Dr. Landon, and I was like, hey, my tooth hurts really bad. And you were like, you know what, Gary? Let me tell you about the composite and how this works with your biology and da-da-da-da. And then you just stood there quiet for me to make a decision. I would say, I have no idea what you're talking about. It means nothing to me. I could try to guess at it, but it's probably not going to end the way I want it to if I start dictating all of those things. Well, that's what happens with a lot of dentists and their marketing data is that, and it's not their fault. It's the marketing company's fault that they're not taking control and saying, hey, look, I'm looking for this end result for you. And what they're doing is they're focusing on activity rather than the end result. And then you just get confused and it's kind of like the dog chasing the tail. So that's a huge red flag as well.
So one of my red flags that I have, and I'm curious what you think on this, is when you ask the marketing company to send you reports, okay? And the most common report that a marketing company would give you is either, if you're doing Google AdWords, the AdWord report. If they're just doing a website or an SEO, they're going to give you the Google Analytics report, which is all data that's very available to an office if they need it, okay? But when you get a Google Analytics report that's chopped up into little pieces and it's built within an essay about your business, they're trying to hide something. They're not giving you the actual Google Analytics report that you can sift through. To me, that's a huge red flag. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the new analytics is super robust. So you can get an analytics page that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, but I don't know I've never met a dentist that can even decipher that. So it's great that you have that, but I would say if you can't see what your actual the number of new patients that you're actually getting from that, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Again, it would be like me coming in, and again, you should get your analytics report, but if it would be like, again, me coming in to get an implant and you print off all the bills for all the different parts that you're about to put in my mouth. And then I'm going through line by line and saying, why are you using that material? Why are you doing, like, patients don't do that because they don't understand it. And so it's analytics, even the new Google, I think, what is it called? G5 or A5 or whatever it's called. It's pretty robust. Like, you have to actually take time. So if you're going to go through an analytic report, what I would say is you need to go take a Google Analytic course and then understand what you're actually looking at. So that way you can actually make educated decisions. And here's why. I could send you a Google Analytic report with thousands of hits on it. And you're going to go, wow, you got me thousands of hits. And it could be 0 new patients from it because all I'm doing is running banner ads for pennies. Or I could send you a Google Analytic report that has 100 visitors to it. And you got 50 new patients from it because all I did is search high intention keywords. And if you don't know how to look at time on site, bounce rates, there's so many things in there, but I'm 100% with you. If you should be able to get your analytic report. You should also, here's the other thing, companies that are like, I'm going to keep all your assets that I build for you. That's a huge red flag too. There's something going on there. You should own everything and you should be able to access it. But again, for me, I just want to look at how many, you paid me $1. How many new patients did I produce for you on that $1? And if you can get to that, then you have ultimate quality assurance.
And just to clarify what I said, so it's like when I look at Google Analytics reports myself, and I'm certainly not an expert, but somebody says, well, congratulations, we got you 70 calls, but the average call time is a minute. Yeah. What the hell happens in a minute you can't even make an appointment in a minute.
It's
so that's why
the
data has to make sense. And that's what I'm talking about here. You have to understand the number of new patients you're getting from the reports they're sending. If you can't understand that, they're hiding something. And that's the big thing I was trying to get through.
Absolutely. Yep. And,
gotcha.
And it's really, here's the other thing is 90%. So we've measured this because a lot of doctors, so the common practice is just tell people that they got how many phone calls that they got, right? You've heard that before. Everybody does that. Well, here's the problem. We've measured it. 90% of them are usually not even people looking for treatment. It's like friends of family calling to see what time your lunch is. It's salespeople, they're bots. So only 10% of those are usually some kind of patient. And then from there, they're not all marketing patients. So if you get 100, someone says, I got you 100 calls. more than likely about 10 of them are patients. And of that, about half of those are patient referrals or some other kind of new patient. So that means you probably, if someone told me off the top, Gary, we got 100 calls, guess how many marketing new patients we got? I'd say about 5.
Perfect. All right. Last thing about marketing I want to talk about before I get into a little bit about SMC. So there are different kinds of marketing companies. How do you identify which one's best for you?
Oh man, this is such a good question. So if I was, again, I'm going to use a dental example. So if I go to the dentist, it's the dentist's job to tell me what kind of dentist I'm at, right? So if I walk in and I go, hey, I need implants, and you're a pediatric dentist, what are you going to say? You're going to say, hey, I'm a pediatric dentist. That's not my focus. Or vice versa. If I go to an implant dentist and I try to bring my little kid there to get their teeth cleaned, it's not going to work, right? And it's the dentist's responsibility to be able to articulate that. The problem that we have in marketing right now is marketing companies don't talk about what kind of companies they are. And the reason they do that is because they just wait to hear what you're going to say. And then they just say, yeah, we can do that too, right? And so that means you're probably not going to get the right answer from them. So here's how you work through that. I'm going to just give you a quick framework. So there's basically 3 different kinds of marketing companies out there. Now, you could split these up in a lot of different ways, and you could argue and say there's hundreds, but I'm just going to give you 3. So there's lead gen. Those are people who are experts at making the phone ring with opportunity. Then there's branding. These are people who are experts at making people feel a certain way about your company. And then there's advertising or strategy. These are you're like, hey, I can help you grow your social media page, or I can help you get more Google reviews, or I can help you build a platform that's going to work for different things, right? So those are 3 different kinds of companies. Here's what you do. When you go to a company, you need to be, no matter who you're talking to, you need to be very intentional about what you want. What is the end result you're looking for? If all you're looking for is a website, then tell them, I just want a new beautiful website. I don't care how it performs. But if you care how it performs, you need to say, I'm building this new website. I want it to look this way because I believe the outcome will be more new patients. This is what's going to happen. The company's going to lead whatever their strength is. So if they're lead gen, they're going to say, oh yeah, we can build that for you. And here's the number of new patients you're going to get and the cost you're going to be looking at. They should know that because they're lead gen experts. If they're branding, they're going to say, oh man, we're going to make you the most beautiful website. So that way, when you see it, man, it's going to give you this feeling and you're really going to feel it from them, right? And that's going to be branding. Or if it's a strategy person, they're going to say, oh, maybe you don't need to build a new website. Maybe if we just add this widget on your website or and we do SEO. That's a strategist. None of them are right or wrong. They're just different. And that's how you kind of decipher what kind of company you're talking to.
Perfect. That's great. That was great information about marketing and red flags and all the KPIs you have to know. So let's spend a few minutes talking about SMC National. So let's talk about the company culture. I know you just made it or making it to the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies, which I think is really cool. So can you talk a little bit about those things?
Yeah, definitely. So our company has about 80 people right now that work in the United States. We also have about 30 to 40 virtual people around the world that do different tasks that people here in the States probably aren't a fan of doing, right? And so like data entry, stuff like that. So we have about 110 people or so on the team currently. We do about 1.5 million. We're on track to do about $20 million this year as a company, and we're continuing to grow and retain our customers. Our churn rate is extremely low for a company of our size, and also our employee turn rate is also extremely low for a company like ours. We put a heavy emphasis on our why. Our why is always growing. We're always growing. Now, here's the order of always growing. Number 1, my priority is I have to make sure my team is always growing. They have to be growing personally and learning new skills and really doing what they're passionate about. Number 2 is our clients. Our clients need to be growing. If their businesses aren't growing, they're shrinking. And that's a bad place to be as a business owner. And number 3, I should say, is our company needs to be growing. Because if my team's growing, your team's growing, then my company's going to grow. And that's a byproduct, not the main focus of our company. And so sometimes people go, well, what do you mean? I thought the customer's always right and that should be the priority. Well, let's just say that that's true. And in some cases, it might be true. But if I come into I've been into dental offices that, yeah, they put the customer first, but the team wasn't really happy to be there. I could kind of tell that, right? That to me is a recipe for disaster as a company. And so we put a heavy emphasis on our culture and taking care of our team. And then we in turn ask them to take really good care of our clients. And so we measure this. Our ENPS score just came out. We had an 82. If you know anything about that, that's like, it's crazy high. If you get into the 50s, you're absolutely killing it. So that's one of the numbers that I really hold as a success marker. And that's how we approach it. I know it's not the same answer that everybody else gives, but it's worked well for us up to this point.
Great. So before we kind of get your contact information, get people, the ability to reach out to you if they have interest in learning more about how SMC can help them, I want to switch to a fun part of the podcast for me, which is our lightning round Q&A. So I'm going to ask you some questions here, Gary. The rule of thumb here is to answer them really quickly off the cuff. You don't have to go into long, drawn-out answers as to why. So first question number one is, what deserves all of your attention but seldom gets it?
Oh, man, I don't...
All right,
that is such a good question. Okay, yeah, do the next one. That is a really good question.
What characteristics or skills are most important for leaders?
Compassion and empathy.
Okay. What methods do you use to keep focused?
Coffee and a treadmill.
Okay. How do you capture and keep track of your ideas? Do you keep a notebook? Do you have voice memos? What do you do?
Notion.
I started using Notion. Yeah, I like Notion.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, here's a tricky one. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
If you were to write a book about yourself, how would you name it?
Something about dental marketing or something.
All right. Who do you look to for advice or mentorship?
Ooh, my parents.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. How do you distinguish yourself from your competitors?
I believe in blue ocean, so I believe in focusing where other people aren't. So we focus on the end result rather than the process or the activity.
Okay. How do you define success?
I define success by having the freedom to do the things that I want to do on a daily basis.
Another thing about success, one skill or trait do you feel is imperative to be successful?
Communication.
You're good at these. One word, 2 word answers. I like that.
You got me on the first one.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. If you lost everything you worked for tomorrow, what would be your first step in starting over?
Going out and start knocking on doors.
Okay. What is the one thing that you will never give up on?
My family.
All right. Last question. What eats up most of your time that you'd like to change?
I'm pretty structured. So like my day is like literally outlined like perfectly the way that I want. I'll answer this in a weird way. So I recently hired a personal assistant that helps me structure all my emails, all my calendars, things like that. So before it used to be, I was spending like 2-3 hours a day in my email at the end of the day, like cycling through and getting things done. Now I spend maybe a half an hour because I have somebody doing that for me and getting it all ready for me, and I just bang it out.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, but I want to interlude by saying something. We asked you, how do you define success? My answer to you would be that you have people emulate you. And I told you, and I'll tell this, I'll be very straightforward on this. Gary had this awesome way when I wanted to learn more about his podcast. He sent me to a landing page that literally had a video explaining the podcast. It had a literally step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm like, I want that. So I literally copied it, not word for word, but I did my own thing. I did my own video, but literally, so that's how you that's how you define success. People emulate you. So I appreciate the information you've helped me with there. So last question here. What book have you read multiple times or you highly recommend to someone to read?
Oh man, for business owners, for dentistry, I would say Checklist Manifesto and the E-Myth. If you are a dental practitioner, E-Myth is huge. Like you have to read that book.
Perfect. Gary, you did really well. You're one of the best at those. That was really great. One answers, one after another. So that's what we call a lightning round. So that was great. So how can people reach out to you or find out more about SMC? Give some information so they can reach out to you to learn more about how you can help them.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can visit our website, smcnational.com, or you can find me on social media. I'm everywhere, just the Gary Bird on everything. And happy to talk to you. And then we also have a podcast called Dental Marketing Theory. We don't talk about marketing as much on there. We really just talk about like operational things inside of dental. I am a dental nerd when it comes to all that kind of stuff. So we bring in a lot of good guests, just like yourself, and talk about different issues that people face in growing their practices.
Well, same with mine. Mine's called the Raving Patients Podcast, but I don't talk about reviews as much anymore. It's helping grow someone's business. That's what I am. I mean, I like to give them information to help them grow. So, Gary, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, if you like the episode, what do we say to do? Review it, share it, post about it, recommend it to your colleagues and friends and people who are in the dental industry. That's what we do. If you want to learn more about what Gary has to offer you or his company has to offer you, I know a number of dentists who use him and are very pleased. Reach out to Gary and his team to find out more. He gave you his contact information. He's all over social as well. He's got that great podcast. Reach out and get the information that you need. I appreciate everybody listening. And as always, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, Gary, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Take care.